Welcome to the first episode of the In-Between-Man podcast, where today we are going to be discussing the traditional male value system. If you listen to the how episode of our introduction, you'll know that we're going to go over some of the history of the traditional male value system, where it came from, what societal impacts had on defining the traditional male value system. What is the definition of traditional? What is the definition of masculinity? Where did we come up with this stuff? Why is it relevant? Well, it's relevant for a number of reasons, in particular to the mission of this podcast. And the mission of this podcast, so that you know, is to try to answer the question of why are men struggling today? And I believe it's absolutely relevant. It's foundational that we spend time going over the traditional male value system. And I won't get into detail why, but the traditional male value system, whether you like it or not, has a direct impact on how you grow up, how you embrace the world, how you interact with other people, how your parents influenced you going forward, how society looks at you. So these value systems have changed and morphed over time. And we are going to get into a deep dive of the history behind the traditional male value system. So if you're not familiar with it and you want to learn more, stick around. If you think that this is a stupid topic, go download Joe Rogan's podcast. Okay? So let's define, let's answer this question. What is the traditional male value system and who created it? Now, that was a question that I proposed to perplexity.ai. Okay? So I'm using AI in helping to generate this content for you. Okay? I'm not afraid to admit it. You can go and check it out on your own. Full disclosure. Okay? And let me read to you what it came back with. It said the traditional male value system, often associated with concepts of masculinity and patriarchy, does not have a single originator. For those of you who are slow, that means no one in particular created it. Instead, it evolved over time through various cultures. There's a lot of cultures out there. How many different cultures? I know we have to freaking check that out too. But that's a lot of different definitions. Social and historical developments. Okay? So, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try to articulate to you the history as broken down in this format of how we came to the understanding of what our traditional male value system is today. Whether you agree with it or whether you don't agree with it, we're laying the foundation to how it began. And I think that is absolutely vital as we go forward on this journey on this podcast. So, during prehistoric and agricultural times or societies, there's anthropological evidence that suggests that the early human societies were relatively egalitarian. And I think I pronounced that correctly. And all that means is that they were all people, were all treated equally. Okay? It's like going to a dead show. All right? Everybody's whacked out on something. Everybody loves everybody. Everybody's peace and love. We're all dancing. We're all sleeping with everybody's girlfriend. Like that whole type thing. It's a dead show. Just look at it like that. Okay? However, the advent of agriculture around 12,000 years ago marks a shift towards patriarchal structures. With the accumulation of resources, or wheat, food, whatever, and the need to defend them, right? Power began to concentrate in the hands of physically stronger males. This led to patriarchal societies where property and social roles were passed down through the male line. So, Everybody's at the dead show. We get up the next morning and we all decide that someone found some wheat and that we should plant some wheat. We're going to lay it out in the field. We're going to grow some wheat. We want to make some freaking bread. We need our carbs, and we're going to create, wheat. We're going to hoard all of our pigs together in a big pen. Someone will slaughter them, and then we'll have food. And that represents, money. That represents sustainability. So Hank, who's 6'8", 300 pounds, is going to be keeping an eye on the wheat and going to be keeping an eye on the pigs because he's the biggest, most strongest guy around and can defend our crops, can defend our livelihood. All right. And we're going to give Hank some benefits for being that strong and taking care of our food. He's going to be sergeant at arms, right? He lets people come in and out. And that's what a patriarchal society is, right? And it has different classes. It has different belief systems, things of that nature, right? And they've passed this thought process or this patriarchal society process down the male line. So Hank's son is more than likely going to end up being the sergeant at arms for our agricultural team. You know what I mean? Like, he's just going to be a big guy. We know that because he's married to Bertha and she's big boned. All right. So that's the prehistoric and agricultural societies. All right. Now we're going to get into philosophical and historical contributions. Okay. Philosophers like Aristotle played a significant role in shaping patriarchal thought by promoting ideals of males' superiority. All right. So Aristotle was tired of all these, humdinger kind of definitions of what superiority is. And he got with the opium pipe or whatever and just sort of coming up with ideas to confirm that males were superior in this patriarchal society and that we needed more structure around that. And he did. So with the accumulation, So Aristotle's hierarchical beliefs about men and women were influenced Western thought for centuries. So we looked at Aristotle as like a genius, as somebody who has some great ideas. And so we implemented them. A lot of people did. A lot of societies did. Okay. Additionally, ancient legal codes, such as the Code of Hammurabi, if I said that right, Hammurabi, reinforced gender roles by codifying expectations for men and women. So now we got the king of Hammurabi, right, of Babylon, who is saying, I am putting social roles and definitions around what we expect from men and what we expect from women, okay? And obviously, because we got a lot of resources to defend, I'm going to give the guys some high-level positions where they'll have, some responsibility of managing and defending our food storages, our pigs, whoever it happens to be, and women will fall into these expectations. All right. And so what did he do? Well, so between 1750 and 1792 BCE, the laws that he created consisted of 282 laws covering a wide range of topics. So the king grabs out his pen and starts writing stuff down. These topics included business contracts, right? Property rights, you're owning land, you're harvesting wheat, family relationships and dynamics, criminal offenses, and civil matters like slavery and debt. Okay, so there was codes around all those things that you had to abide by, or you'd get in trouble. A code The code is best known for its retributive, excuse me, Jesus, justice. So you ever wondered where an eye for an eye comes from? King Hammurabi came up with that, okay? So it's a kind of punishment that mirrors the nature of the offense. So you stab somebody in the eye, I'm taking your eye out. You cut somebody's arm off, I'm cutting your arm off. You urinate on someone's yard, I'm going to urinate on your yard. The code also reflects the social structure of the Babylon society with different punishments based on social class of offense and the victim. And they had 3 different classes. They had elite, which would be you and me. They had free, just go out there and do your shit. And then they had slaves. Get over here and do the shit I don't want to do. The code claimed to bring order and justice, with Hammurabi claiming divine authority to prevent the strong from oppressing the weak. That's where it came from. Okay? So the philosophical and historical contributions that played a role in defining the traditional male value system and how it was created. So there's another component that now dovetails off this fact, which are the cultural narratives that are associated with each different culture. You know, I mean, calling a spade, you know, the Indians are going to have a cultural narrative on what defines man versus, anyone else, any other culture, right? So those narratives are starting to have more of an influence on the definition of what the traditional male value system is. In most ancient societies, myths, religious texts, not like the ones that I would send you tonight, but like books, you know what I mean? Have you ever seen one of those? And cultural practices upheld ideals of masculinity tied to strength, courage, and dominance. So the underlying theme for all these different cultures is that men were typically stronger than women. They had more courage. We got to defend that wheat. And they dominated over everything else and everybody else, right? You're going to get out there and you're going to defend these pigs, because if you don't, your sister's not going to eat and we got to defend them. So grab your bow and arrow and let's go. All right. Tictus highlighted Germanic tribes emphasized on male warriors protecting women as a core masculine duty. So who is Tictus? Who is this guy? So he was a Roman historian, Publius Cornelius Tictus. He was a politician and a historian. And so basically, hold on here. He participated in shaping Germanic tribes' emphasis on including that male warriors protect women as a core masculine duty, right? You will be judged based on how well you can protect your family, how well you can take care of them, how well you can protect your wife, right? And all those things. So now we're going to move into the modern theories, okay? So scholars like Frederick Engels link the rise of patriarchy to private property and class-based societies. Others argue that patriarchy predates these developments and arose independently across different regions. So there's a rub between the way the patriarchal society defined the traditional male value system versus how these different tribes and these different cultural movements defined masculinity as well. And it varied dependent on the independent and different regions. So you had to incorporate or you should incorporate not only your perspective, but the other perspective from different cultures and where they lived independently and away from other patriarchal societies, okay? And so in summary, the traditional male value system is a product of complex and cultural processes rather than the creation of any one individual or event, okay? So over time, right, all of us have come to an understanding of how we will define the traditional male value system and what success is for that individual. Over time, it is shaped historically, culturally, right? It all is included. And it's not driven by one person in particular. And it's important to mention that because it's happening over time and because it's not a concrete document per se, right? It takes a long time to change that narrative, right? It takes decades, maybe even centuries to really adjust to any modern change. And so if you're asking yourself, why are men struggling today? Well, could it be the fact that the values associated with defining how men are successful are maybe a little outdated? I think so. Let's get into some more of these details here. So the next question I proposed to Perplexity was, what does the traditional male value system represent? Simple question, right? What does this traditional male value system represent about me? And do I agree with it? And, am I aligned with it? And what if I'm not? Does that mean I'm not a good guy? I don't know. You tell me. So let's answer that question. What does the traditional male value system represent? The most common version of the traditional male value system referred to today is often associated with the concept of traditional masculinity. Yeah, marinate on that for a second. Okay, we've had enough time to marinate on it. What the hell does that mean? What the hell does that mean? All right, so what I decided to do was to define traditional and to define masculinity, okay, according to the answer to this question. So the word traditional means the term traditional refers to customs, beliefs, or methods that have been passed down through generations with a particular group or society. Okay. I can wrap my mind around that. I get that. That makes sense to me. Here are the values. My dad went through them. My grandfather went through them. His father went through them. How are they the same? Are they different? What do they mean? What does masculinity mean? I got an answer to that question too. The word masculinity means masculinity refers to a set of attributes, behaviors, and roles generally associated with men and boys. It is a societal constructed concept that varies across different cultures and historical periods. So socially constructed concepts means anyone's interpretation or a shared understanding of what a man should be. So everybody has an opinion on how I'm valued, just like how I value women. Everybody's got an opinion on how they think I should be valued, right? But generally speaking, right, there are attributes, behaviors, and roles. My God, that's interesting. Okay? But it also means that there all open to interpretation. Interesting. So we've defined traditional, we've defined masculine. What's the next question you're going to ask, Rennick? It's a great question. I'm going to answer it for you. Okay, so now that we understand traditional, now that we understand masculinity, what are some of the attributes, behaviors, and roles generally associated with men and boys? Did you see what I did there? I took the definition of masculinity and I basically put it in the terms of a question, in perplexity. And this is what it spits out to me, okay? All right, so there's 4 attributes, behaviors, and roles. Those are the attributes, behaviors, and roles associated with men and boys. The first one being toughness and resilience. Men are expected to be physically strong, emotionally stoic, and capable of enduring hardships without showing vulnerability or asking for help. Does that resonate with you? Because it fucking resonates with me. I am supposed to be physically strong, okay? I got to deadlift at least 500 pounds. I got to bench press X. I've got to be, Navy SEAL Team 6 strength. I've got to be emotionally stoic, which means that I can't show emotion. I can't talk about anything that's bothering me emotionally because that's a sign of weakness. And I must be capable of enduring hardships without showing vulnerability and asking for help. Do you think that that's a deep-seated thing today as we try to answer the question, why are men struggling today? I do. Put that feather in your cap. So now we know. Toughness and resilience. Rejection of femininity. Rejection of femininity. Okay? Traditional masculinity discourages men from displaying traits or behaviors considered feminine, such as expressing emotions like sadness or fear, or engaging in nurturing roles. All right? So now we've defined that women have all those things, and now we know we can't have any of them, okay? Because I'm not allowed to express emotion or sadness or fear, and I damn sure am not going to be nurturing my kids while they're growing up because that's not a function of my responsibility. But is that true today? I don't think so. I spent a lot of time nurturing my kids, giving them baths, reading them bedtime stories, right? Teaching them against right or wrong, helping them with sports. I am actively involved in the nurturing roles around my kids, okay? So we have attributes, behaviors, and roles. First one, toughness and resilience. Second one, rejection of femininity. Like, not doing it, okay? That's like telling a girl when she's crying to be a fucking pussy. Stop being a pussy and suck it up. Like, you wouldn't do that. And then walk out, right? That's what you would do. That would not go far today. I'm just saying, all right? Now, the third attribute, behavior, and roles generally associated with men and boys is dominance. I'm going to dominate you. And leadership. Men are often expected to take charge, lead in relationships and family, and assert control in society and professional situations and settings. So now, when I go in the room, I'm the alpha male. I'm dominating everything that's going on in the room. People are focused in on me. I have a say in what's going on. And as a leader, because I'm defined by my leadership capabilities, you're going to fucking do it. Okay? That's it. If you're going to define me and my value as a man, and I'm supposed to have dominance and leadership, well, this is what we're doing. Okay? That's how that's going. How well does that work today? Does that work in the economic corporate world today? I don't think so, right? Even though you do take charge and you lead in relationships with family and asserting control in the business world and society, it's not very well received today. And it's not looked at and considered a very good role to have as a man. Dominance. Okay? Honor and responsibility is the fourth and last one. Upholding values like integrity, loyalty, and respect is seen as essential. Traditional men are expected to take responsibilities for their actions and lead by example. So, in other words, you have to manage your day like every action and every behavior that you do is being printed on the front page of the New York Times or Wall Street Journal for everyone to evaluate and determine whether or not you're a good man. That means I have to have integrity, so I can't lie, right? I have to do what I say all the time and never make a mistake. I'm loyal. I don't cheat on my wife, right? I'm devoted to our marriage, and I will uphold the values that I've set out in front of God and all of my family members. And respect is seen as essential. Absolutely. And I would even go far. Okay, so tangent number one. I'm going off on a tangent. I'm just going to take a right turn. Okay, putting the turn signal on. Follow me down the road of this, because I'm sure you've heard it before. Okay, this notion of respect is in a part of my DNA. As a man, I want to feel respected. I want to exude through my actions honesty and integrity and be okay with everything that I do being published on the front page of the New York Times for everybody to review. That's what I want, right? Because I know that's a value. Respect is something completely, I wouldn't say different, but it has a direct correlation on how I manage my serenity in a relationship. And now I've said this before, and I've said it 100 times, and it's probably going to sound like a broken record, but I believe with all of the belief systems inside of me, down to my core, that women have an insatiable need to feel loved. And I don't have a problem with that. And I'm okay with doing that. That is something that I've learned that I believe women cherish. Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay? And I want that too. Okay? So it's not that I don't value that. I want to be loved and reminded that I'm loved by my partner all the time. But it's not the number one thing. For me, in my relationships and ongoing, respect holds a higher value for me than love. And you might be asking yourself, well, why is that? Well, men like to be congratulated or told that they're doing a good job. And when I'm respected, right, by my partner for being the primary breadwinner, and paying for the lease on our car and paying for groceries for our family and providing food and shelter, a house, and pay the mortgage, like, I want to be respected for that, right? I want to be honored that is something that I want to give to you, right? Like it means so much to me that you respect that. And when you do that, and when you're capable of doing that, the next emotion that's, neck on neck, nose to nose next to respect is love. Because you're acknowledging that you understand what part I'm doing in our partnership. If you think that you deserve that, or that you've earned the right to have that because you have a vagina, I'm telling you, it's selfish. It's just selfish. And if you want to feel loved and valued by your male partner, the best way that you can reciprocate that is by showing them respect. And I mean that sincerely. Like it really makes a big difference. Okay? So now we're coming back into the on Main Street. We're back on Broadway. We're going straight. I turned right back onto Broadway. Now we're going to keep going down this rabbit hole of, defining the roles, attributes, behaviors of what boys and men are. Okay? So the follow-up question for that, understanding toughness, resilience, rejection of femininity, dominance and leadership, honor and responsibility, is the benefits of applying the components of the traditional male value system. So what do I get in return if I'm committed to being tough and resilient, if I'm committing to the rejection of femininity, which we know we can't do today, right? So there's a change already, all right? So let's just bear that in mind. Even though it's being asked of us in this context, it doesn't work, all right? Dominance and leadership, what does that get me by having those attributes? And what does it get me by having honor and responsibility? So what are the benefits of applying the components of the traditional male value system? And we have 6. Okay? So, under leadership and responsibility, from an external and from an internal perspective. So outside, as we face society, what am I getting that's a positive thing back from society by showing leadership and responsibility? And what am I getting internally, knowing that I'm actually being a leader and being responsible for the things that are in front of me? Okay? That's what we're going to answer right now. So traditional male values often emphasize leadership, assertiveness, and responsibilities. These traits can help men excel in professional and personal settings by fostering respect, decision-making skills, and the ability to guide others effectively. Upholding the role of a provider and protector can enhance a man's sense of purpose and fulfillment, especially within family and community contexts. So if I continue to be a leader because I want to, and because I'm a leader, I'm going to be responsible by showing the other people what I'm capable of doing and leading. These are some of the things that I get back in return, hypothetically, right? When you think about upholding the role of a provider and protector can enhance a man's sense of purpose and fulfillment, especially with family and community. Is that happening today? I would say from a society perspective, from a cultural perspective, from an economical perspective, not at all. They're actually being minimized. How? Well, we'll talk about that. All right. And from an internal perspective, I have purpose by doing those things. Okay. And I have purpose around my family. I have respect for my family. Like, those are all good qualities that a man has. That's what it's saying right here. Okay? So that's some of the benefits that come with having dominance and leadership. Then we're going to talk about the benefit of being emotionally resilient, which really falls under, I believe, the rejection of femininity. Masculine norms like emotional resilience and independence can help men handle stress and adversity effectively. Do you believe that to be true? I can share with you based on my experience, that is not true. What happens when I do that is that I isolate, I remove myself from society and don't want to communicate with anybody and don't want to ask for help. So then I'm just sitting at home by myself, upset. Okay? Because I'm not being perceived as a valuable man because I'm showing my emotions. When balanced with emotional intelligence, these traits promote problem solving and logical responses to challenges, which I wholeheartedly agree with. Okay? We're talking about one specific example, but it is true. Emotional resilience can do that. Think of just all the men and women who fight for our armed forces. Like a freaking medic is applying a freaking tourniquet on somebody who's just lost their leg from an IED. What's compelling this guy to keep doing it and not running away 100 miles an hour? Well, he's been taught to do that. That's his job. That's what he's going to do. And he works through that. Doesn't mean that he's overcome it. He just works through it. All right. So what are some of the benefits that are applying to the traditional male value system? Social and economical advantages, right? Back to the patriarchal kind of thing. In patriarchal societies, men often benefit from systemic privileges, such as higher earnings, greater career opportunities, and freedom from gender-based discrimination in the workplace. Men are less likely to experience fear of sexual harassment or assault in public spaces compared to women, which contribute to a sense of personal security. Fact or false? It's true. We live in a society today where men can't go to bars anymore. And I think the primary reason why we can't go to bars anymore is once we get a couple in us and we see an attractive woman across the bar, we're going to walk over there and maybe pull her bra strap or slap her ass. And that's just not tolerated today. You can go to jail for that. That's sexual harassment. And if the woman has recourse, if you treat her the same way we treated women even a decade ago. Am I right? I am. So that societal norm has changed. That has also impacted how we're valued. Family and relationship benefits, both from an external and from an internal perspective. Acting as a provider can foster strong paternal attachments and deepen family bonds. Men who embrace traditional roles often report high levels of satisfaction from nurturing their families and contributing to their well-being. I truly believe that. Traditional dynamics in relationships where men provide financial stability and practical support can create harmonious partnerships, allowing both partners to thrive in their respective roles, if a woman appreciates it. If. Women are being told today that they can have it all. Everything. So my role as a man is diminished. It's not as valued as much. I don't need you to go pay the mortgage. I could go do that myself. Okay? Right? Like, huh? What are you saying? Has anybody else felt that way? Like I have. Okay, whatever you say. And then not in every circumstance is it like this, but in some it may be. But then the woman decides that after committing to her career, she wants to stay home and take care of the kids. And quite frankly, guys, in my opinion, you can't have both. You can't have both without having a partner, a male partner, who is resentful and angry. Now, that's on them, not on you. But You just can't have both. And I believe that. So pick one. Over time and through collaboration and through communicating and through a partnership with your significant other, you could have that, but you're not going to have it right away. No way. And if you do, it's like winning the lottery. Try to find guys like that out there. Evolutionary and psychological fulfillment, both from an external standpoint and from an internal standpoint. Evolutionary psychology suggests that fulfilling the provider role aligns with deep-seated biological drives to ensure the survival of offspring. Fact. I feel that way. I remember yesterday, like when my wife gave birth to my first son, I felt like I had a purpose, man. I felt like I was driven. I was like, I'm going to get out there. I'm going to get shit done. I'm going to pay for this stuff. I'm going to have her home. She's not going to have to go back to work. Like, I am going. I am motivated. I am driven. I'm doing my part. I'm doing my role. I'm feeling a sense of value that I didn't have yesterday when I didn't see my son being born or my daughter being born. I want to provide this to my significant other. I'm driven to do that. And the last but not least is advocacy and influence, both from an external and from an internal perspective. Men adhering to traditional masculine values can use their leadership skills to advocate for causes, mentor others, and foster positive change in their communities. So now that I have been a leader, right? This is a benefit that I'm getting from being a leader, right? And following these traditional roles. Now I've earned the respect of society, and I am capable of mentoring people and giving back my experience and what I've learned during business engagements, during other, engagements where I learned something that someone who might be going through for the first time hasn't learned, right? And internally, the same thing as well, right? Like if I go through a really hard divorce and I have to endure some hard lessons, which I have, and not run away from them and not anesthetize them with drugs or alcohol, I am over time learning how to adjust to being uncomfortable. And the problem with that is that you don't know when it's going to end. One day you wake up and you're like, okay, this doesn't hurt as bad as it did the other day. Why is that? The pain starts to subside. The grief kind of goes away and you move through it. And that's how this could impact you internally from an advocacy and from an influential standpoint. So that's what I wanted to make sure I shared with you today. And I think what I'll probably do for next week is spend some more time. I don't know what I'm going to do for next week. I mean, we went into some pretty good detail here. But I think where we're going to go with this stuff is, are these benefits of the traditional male value system still being appreciated today? And my answer to you is no. It's not. They're not. Men are not asking for help, and they are not being vulnerable until their hair is on fire or they have a gun in their mouth. And the majority of people who have a gun in the mouth pull the fucking trigger. And it's hard. It's really, really hard. So I'll have to figure out where we're going to go next week. But this is a foundation of, in my opinion, of how we are being valued and looked at from a male's perspective in today's society. And I think the narrative, candidly, some of the narratives have changed, and not in a beneficial way. So why are men struggling? Well, maybe some of the traditional male value systems need to be rewritten. Maybe. Right? What are they? Now, there is one other component I did want to mention, is that because I'm a question-oriented kind of guy and like to ask questions, especially in this type of nature, right? I ask myself, is there a traditional female value system? I proposed that question to Perplexity. And what I got back was, there is no single universal agreed upon traditional female value system that directly mirrors the traditional male value system. But societies have historically set out perspectives and roles and standards for women just as they have for men. But isn't that interesting? Women aren't being tied to the same values and structure that we're being tied to. And I'm not saying is that fair or not. I'm just pointing out the obvious. Traditional male value systems often emphasize achievement, status, emotional restraint, self-reliance, risk-taking, and being a provider or protector. These standards are rooted in cultural expectations and have been widely discussed and critiqued in recent years. For women, traditional value systems have typically centered around nurturing and caregiving. I agree. Maintaining the household and supporting family well-being. I'm just repeating what's being said here. I'm not saying that you have to do that. Physical appearance and attractiveness, modesty and virtue, emotional expressiveness and empathy, social harmony and relationship building, self-sacrifice and putting other needs first. These expectations have historically defined what it means to be a successful or good woman in many cultures. Just as with men, these roles have been challenged and are evolving, with many women today defining success through achievement, independence, and personal fulfillment, sometimes in addition or instead of traditional roles. And I think, and then I'll end with this, is I think that with today's current society and where we sit today, at no fault of our own, women have redefined how they want to be treated and valued in today's society, which is not a bad thing, right? Is not a bad thing. Although some of it is at the expense of values that men use to confirm their worthiness. And maybe we'll get into those details next week. But that's it. That's all I got right now. The In-Between Man podcast, where men can be men. And I'll see you on the next one.